I'm very excited to introduce tonight's presenter, Sarah Waxman. She is the founder of At the Well, to center the Jewish voice in the global wellness conversation. Her entrepreneurial endeavors have always focused on health, wellness, and finding ways to bring ancient practices into the modern day. She has taught yoga and mindfulness in educational settings and has worked with thousands of educators around the world. These experiences infuse a deep understanding of the power of participation in a supportive community and feeling connected to your spirituality. So Sarah is here today to teach us a little bit about the Hebrew months and learning to track spiritual time. So Sarah, thank you so much for being here tonight, and I will hand things off to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. Thanks so much for being here. I am someone who loves participation. We have a small group here tonight. So if you're able to bring your face on the camera, please do so that we can have an interactive face-to-face conversation. Of course, make yourself comfortable. I'm sure people are Zooming from all over. But yeah, you heard in my bio, I really care about participation. I care about creating places of belonging. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Hebrew calendar 101. Julie said you can send private message questions to her. Hi, Rhoda. Hi, everyone. But also, like, I'm kind of an informal participatory facilitator. So feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you and get some questions going. I would love to get some voices heard. Maybe some people can introduce themselves and say why you came to this room and share where you are. I need one person to volunteer to be brave and just get their voices heard. Nicole, can I call on you? You're smiling at me like you know that you're the brave one. Julie, can we unmute her?
Okay, thanks. It has it disabled for participants. Yes, I'm a professor, so I understand that getting people to be the first one. But so I am Nicole. I actually live in San Angelo, Texas, which is a smaller town in West Texas. And I have just been wanting to integrate more of the Jewish calendar, living by the Jewish calendar in my life. And so when I saw this was one of the offerings, I jumped in.
Amazing. So happy to be here. Thanks for going first. Vibes to you, everybody. This means good energy to Nicole. Amazing. Can we hear somebody else's voice? You can introduce yourself, say where you are in the world, and maybe why you joined us in this room tonight. It feels good to talk. Don't be shy. Yes, Rhoda.
Okay, got it. Hi, everybody. I'm Rhoda Wiseman, and I live in Los Angeles. And I'm a coach and consultant with people who work in the nonprofit field, and I'm a fan of Sarah's. So I wanted to come to see what and how much I can learn from her, which I know will be a lot. Really, I wanted to learn with Sarah, and I also am training to be a chaplain. So spirituality and growing spirituality and being an emotional and spiritual support for people, it's becoming a passion. So I'm really happy to be here.
Vibes to Rhoda. Good to see you. Maybe one other voice. Judaism is about creating belonging to the, yes, Andrea. And we'll get Deborah too. Love it.
I can't hop on camera, but hi from San Diego. I jumped on, I saw this kind of posted in a Facebook group, so jumped on a little bit last minute, but was excited when I saw that it was through At the Well, because they've just started getting the daily texts for counting the Omer, and like then we'll get the monthly ones. And so I have been kind of wanting to, I guess, learn more from you. So I'm excited to do that in real time and also be in community today. And right now kind of feeling sometimes a little less in community. So happy to join everyone.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Andrea. And yeah, we can talk a little bit more about the text message that she's getting, but she was very brave and vulnerable to share that she's feeling a little less than connected these days. Raise your hand if you are also feeling that. We're all zooming to each other, so you're not alone. You're not alone in us sort of feeling this disconnection, but it's so grateful to be here with everyone here tonight. Deborah, we'd love to hear your voice. Tell us who you are and maybe why you came in here today.
I'm Deborah Wolf. I live in Washington, D.C. also.
Woohoo!
I just in reading the list of sessions, I'm curious about Rosh Chodesh. I never have really paid a lot of attention to it. My father died in January, and so I've been thinking a great deal about time and how Judaism marks time and sort of counting days and counting months and counting, various sort of sections of time, or I can't think of the word, but anniversaries and various sort of aspects of time. And so I thought this would be helpful and interesting.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Deborah. I'm sorry to hear
I've
about
heard
your
of
loss.
it well, but I don't really know much about it.
You're in the right place. We'll vaguely talk about it and hopefully open a door to much more. One of my favorite things about Judaism is it creates containers of time. And that is actually something we learn from Heschel about creating the sanctuary of Shabbat, and that we don't build these great cathedrals, we build these great moments of time. And that really inspires me to think about how I might make my life holy and how I might sanctify it and how I might create opportunities to separate what otherwise would have been a mundane moment and make it something special, make it something connective. So that's what this conversation is going to be a little bit about. This is called the Hebrew Calendar 101. So please don't ask me how they calculate the leap year, because that's at least the 402 class, some sort of master's degree in calculations. But yeah, this is generally going to go through how we think about time in Judaism, and it's going to be participatory. We can really steer it how we want. So feel free to raise your hand and ask questions, and let's talk to each other about it. So I want everyone to think for a second. Feel free to write into the chat or maybe just jot down on a piece of paper for yourself. Just what do you do to track time? It's a very vague, open question, but what are you tracking? What are you paying attention to? How do you define what time it is in your life? Type that in the chat. I asked a lot of questions. Welcome to my teaching. The question here, though, is how do you define what time it is? How do you think about time? Nicole says mostly paying attention to the day-to-day. Sammy says the secular calendar. Alina says during the week, time seems to escape me, but on Shabbat it feels eternal. And Anne says through a massive planner with all my kids' activities and a daily, weekly, monthly to-do list. David says, I like watching the change of the seasons and how nature changes in response. Anybody want to come on their voice or unmute themselves or raise their hand and we can hear your answer with your voice? Yeah, Andrea.
I started working for myself in August, so my entire concept of time really went out the window, I think. So I was trying to type it in the chat, and then when you said to talk, I was like, oh, this is going to be more, I guess, expansive for me. So I think kind of on a broader scale, I have moments that are like anchor points of how long ago was that, or how much time until XYZ. But it's not super specific. It's more like it could have been last week or it could have been 3 months ago, but it was all the other day. And then kind of common points where I have a meeting with someone else. So I'll have an alarm for 10 minutes prior to where my time intersects with someone else's time. Otherwise, if I have nothing on my calendar, then time sort of doesn't exist in a way. I know it's today, I know today ends, I know tomorrow starts, but the actual time doesn't always matter unless someone else needs it from me or I need to be somewhere for someone else.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, that last point, it's like time doesn't exist unless somebody needs something from me. And then all of a sudden I have to be time bound. Thanks. Alina.
Am I muted?
Yep.
Okay,
Hi.
great. Hi. Well, this year, so I usually track during the Jewish calendar, and I was living in Israel for 5 years. So it was so easy because everybody was tracking through that same calendar. And then when we came back to the US, the holidays just kind of surprised me. Every single holiday, I'm like, okay, next time I have to get the book for Shavuot and the matzah for Pesach. And I just feel like the reason I'm speaking is I really want to make an intention that these holidays and the Rosh Chodesh and the time this next year moving forward, that I really am very conscientious about creating that space for myself and my husband. And because we love it so much, it nourishes us so much. And living in a secular world, it just gets forgotten. So I want to bring a little bit of that Israel life into my life here.
Thanks, Alina. Yeah, I completely agree. I never learned about Jewish time, even though I went to Hebrew school 3 days a week. Like I kind of knew that there was another calendar system, but no one was ever conversing with me as if I could pay attention to Jewish time and that would make a meaningful impact in my life. So I was very surprised to really learn about the Hebrew calendar in my mid-20s. And it came to me because I learned about the ritual of Rosh Chodesh, which means the new moon. And now I really use it as one of the most important spiritual practices of my life. Yes, today is May 16th, 2021. And that's how I know to show up at 8:30 East Coast time to be on time for you all in this sacred Zoom room that we are here. But it's also Shavuot 5781. And that moment of time pulls me in a completely different direction than thinking about my life just as by the Roman calendar. And I don't really understand why Jewish people really are talking to each other as in Roman time, because they destroyed the temple. And here we are paying attention to the calendar that we inherited from that. So I really think about the Jewish calendar as something as a daily way to be in touch with my spiritual practice. Tomorrow it will be May 17th, and it will also be a holiday for Jewish people. And I'm going to take that day in order to be thinking about my highest self. So one of the calendars I think about to be on time for work and to go to the dentist and to make sure that I show up in all my secular responsibilities. And every day I know what day it is in the Hebrew calendar so that I can think about what my soul is supposed to be rooting into. And by doing that, I'm connected to all my ancestors. I'm connected to all the people that will come from me or from you all on earth. And I'm connected to nature because the Hebrew calendar is a lunar solar calendar. Does anybody know the one other culture that uses a lunar solar calendar? You have to unmute. Yeah, you can, Rhoda, you can unmute. You can always people can raise their hand.
No, I tried and it says the host keeps it undone. I think Islam, no?
So Islam, you use a purely lunar calendar, or lunar calendar. So that's why Ramadan sometimes like right now, and sometimes it's in the middle of the winter, and it changes because having a lunar calendar means that every month or every year there's 11 fewer days than a solar calendar. The Roman calendar is a purely solar calendar, and the Muslims use a purely lunar calendar. There's one culture that uses a lunar solar calendar like the Jews do. That's the Chinese. The Chinese calendar is a lunar solar calendar. The reason that we use a lunar solar calendar is because we count time by the sundown to sundown, and we have all of the months are based on the lunar calendar. And in order to make sure that our harvest festivals stay in the right season, we need to have an abbreviated lunar solar calendar. So if we just had a lunar calendar, Passover could change no matter what season it was. Like, it would be all over the place. But we absolutely need to have Passover in the spring. We need to have Sukkot in the fall. And then we need to have Shavuot 49 days after Passover. Does that make sense? All Vedic derived to Vaishnava, Buddhist, etc. I'm not sure what that comment means, but feel free to unmute yourself and you can help us learn. On Shavuot, we stay up debating with each other, learning with each other. So I want to make sure that people jump in. Great. So the Hebrew calendar is based on a couple of things. One, we have a sense of time in a day. So the day actually starts at night, which is a little bit confusing. And we wake up in the morning and we have the fullness of our day. What's the very first thing Jewish people are supposed to do in the morning? Yes, the Moda Ani. Bringing breath. Go ahead, Rhoda.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The Moda Ani is a prayer. We're supposed to do it when we wake up in the morning, and not even before when our eyes start going up, like, oh my gosh, my alarm clock's going off. Oh my gosh, how is it possibly the morning? Instead of freaking out, we're supposed to wake up and say, grateful that I am, that my soul has returned to my body. And so the very first word in Jewish time that a person would say upon waking up is gratitude, grateful that I am. Anybody have a Moda Ani practice that they could talk about what it feels like? Anybody have a morning gratitude practice at all? Not yet. I took this on a couple of years ago, and then I did a little bit of neuroscience research about it. And it literally changes your brain to wake up in the morning and start thinking of things you're grateful for. So I strongly encourage it as a way to take what otherwise could be a pretty high anxiety moment and change it into a moment where you're creating pathways in your brain to connect your soul and your nervous system. So that's one way of thinking about time. The next is by the months, and we're going to spend a little time going through the months in a second. But we have each new month is called Rosh Chodesh, and it happens right when there's a sliver of the moon. Anybody know what month we're in right now? David. I'm not used to not being able to have everyone talk. Sivan, yes. Yeah. And so then we have this idea of a week where we have 6 days of work, and 1 day of rest. And that is a completion of 1 week. And then the other idea of time is around the sun, the earth rotation around the sun, which is a year. Here's another really fun fact, important for 101. How many New Years do we have in the Hebrew calendar? These are supposed to be hard because this is 101, so you likely don't know this. Yes, Shai is right. 4. Shai, do you know the New Year's in the Hebrew calendar? If so, you can unmute yourself. Julie says a lot.
I possibly know them.
Okay, throw them out there.
Rosh Hashanah,
Uh-huh.
the 1st of Nisan,
Uh-huh.
New Year of Animals. Does that fit in there? No, probably not.
We don't have animals, but it's another living thing.
I've got 2. Somebody else take the other 2.
Okay, Shai gets vibes. Yes, Alina, trees. And what month is that? The birthday of the trees?
Shvat.
Yep, Shvat. And then this is the most obscure. The 4th New Year. The 1st of Elul, which is really around taxes. So when I first learned this, I started freaking out. I was like, how am I supposed to think about time if there's 4 New Years? And then I realized, you know what? Even in the secular calendar, we have different New Years. Like we know when the school year starts, which is in the fall. We have the Roman sense of the New Year, which is the dead of the winter, which now that I live with the Hebrew calendar and a spiritual calendar makes no sense at all to me. Anybody been really successful at a Roman New Year, like a New Year's resolution for the regular Roman calendar? Rhoda, you've done it all the way from January to January? Okay, you're an anomaly. It's really hard to do that. It's really hard to start something new in the middle of the winter. It makes me just want to curl up and be in a quiet, like little ball. The difference between
Move to LA.
come to LA.
Winter's not winter.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I find it so spacious to think about 4 New Years now. What is it? I'm curious what it brings up for all of you to think about the fact that we have 4 New Years. What does that mean to you? This is the 101 class. We're not getting PhDs here.
I'll say that for me, I feel like it's like a fresh start. And I feel like the more fresh starts we get, why not?
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole practice of just every day being a new year. Yeah, Nicole, here I'm unmuting you.
Okay. I think it makes me think of with the 4 seasons. And so having just these sections where you have these additional times to kind of, it's those containers like you were talking about at the beginning, like you've got these different times. And so it doesn't have to be this whole process, but you can have in these 4 chunks. Think about it in chunks of time.
Yeah, think about it in chunks of time. We can think about the birthday of the year being Passover, or sorry, the birthday of the year being Rosh Hashanah, and the birthday of the Jewish people is Passover. The time that I need to make sure that I'm taking stock of what I owe to the community is on Elul, which makes sense because that's the time where I'm doing my tshuva practice, getting ready for Rosh Hashanah. And because we're Jewish people, we also need to take stock of the earth and paying attention to the birthday of the trees. Deborah, yeah. Oh, shoot, I just muted you. Sorry.
Well, what I was going to say was very similar, actually, that it's sort of 4 times to focus on something different.
Exactly. So I want to give everyone that spaciousness and give you the Hebrew calendar in a way that feels good to you, knowing that it's always about renewal, always about turning towards yourself, always an opportunity for a new year. Great. So I made a little slide. I'm not used to just talking at everyone. Most of my teaching is in small groups. So I want to kind of go through the Hebrew calendar a little bit month by month. So we talked a little bit about Jewish time and this concept of a day, a week, a month, a year, and this idea that we have 4 new years. And then here you can see the wheel. Can you all see my mouse? All right. You would think after a year of COVID, I got really high tech. And it's like, I got a little bit high tech. Here we go. Here are the months of the year. Can I have someone unmute or raise their hand and read these words out? And if you mispronunciation, that's great. You did it. You put it out there. Any brave soul? Yeah.
Hi.
You can start any of the 4 New Years.
Okay, well, how about we'll start with Nissan then.
Perfect.
All right, and then we go counter or clockwise.
Yep, go here.
Okay. Ayar,
Mm-hmm.
Sivan,
Yep.
Tammuz,
Mm-hmm.
Av,
Mm-hmm.
Elul,
Mm-hmm.
Tishrei,
Mm-hmm.
Cheshvan,
Mm-hmm.
Kislev,
Mm-hmm.
Tevet,
Mm-hmm.
Shavat,
Yep.
and Adar.
Adar, perfect. Vibes. Thanks for reading those. Just by show of hands, the people that we can see on screen, raise your hand if you learned this as a kid. Okay, Rhoda is our anomaly. Again, this is an LA thing. We all need to get there. Yeah, I hope that we're the last generation that didn't learn this, because understanding how we own our own time can be really important. The first commandment in Torah, the very first thing God commands the Israelites to do upon leaving Egypt is to mark the new moon of Nisan and all the new moons thereafter. Because the difference between being a slave and a free person is our own ownership of time. And so all of us are a free person. We all own our time. There's people on earth right now that are not free. They are bound to other people's time. We get to decide when we work, when we sleep, when we come study, when we brush our teeth. And so therefore, let's not take that for granted and let's be in direct relationship with it. And so that's what God invites us to do. And sorry for not prepping. I use the G word sometimes. The divine, Elohim, Adonai, whatever we want to call the oneness of the world, of which we have 72 names. There are attributes in Judaism, none of which are actually the name of God. So Nisan is the first month of the year. It's 1, and Tishrei is month 7. This is the beginning of the Jewish people. We're going to go through each month in a second, but I just want to walk us through the year, starting with Nisan. So this is our first moment of freedom, the very first step out of in Exodus, out of slavery. And then we go into the month of Iyar, and we're here in Sivan. And during this time, there's counting the Omer. Now, I know someone here is getting At the Well's text messages, which is, if you're interested in this, you can go to At the Well's website, and we have a daily text message that went out every day of the month of, or the 49 days of the Omer, and every major Jewish holiday, you'll get that. And the Omer is its own class. That's like 201 time, but it is a harvest time, and it's a spiritual time. From Nisan to Sivan, today's Shavuot, this is our highest moment of freedom. First, there's the slavery, and then there's Passover. And Passover is our lowest moment of freedom. We spent the whole Omer getting higher and higher and higher in order to get to Shavuot. this opportunity for us to just be completely open and ready to receive. So this is a spiritual climb. Then we start getting into Tammuz, and that's the summer. And the Jewish summer is a little bit different than what our secular summer teaches us. When you think summer, what do you all think of? You can type in the chat or raise your hand. Travel, rest, relaxation, sun, beach, vacation, sun, daylight. Yes. Parties, vacation, no school, barbecues, carefree life. But the Hebrew calendar actually is really different. In the Hebrew calendar, we start feeling destruction. We start getting overheated. We get angry. We feel grief. We honor and mark the beginning and the completion of the destruction of the temple. And what's so fascinating to me is actually crime rates go up in the summer. Wars happen in the summer. Stuff goes down in society in the summer. And so the Hebrew calendar seems to be like in more aligned with what's going on in nature, which is that things can get kind of heated and humans react to it. And that's what happens in the Hebrew calendar. And I think that's what's happening around us too. So Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz is a fast day. It's the beginning of the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem. We get all the way into Av, the 9th of Av. Tisha B'Av means 9th of Av. The 9th of Av is the saddest day in the Hebrew calendar, the destruction of the temple. We're immediately met by the full moon of Av. Anybody know what the full moon of Av? The holiday of the full moon of Av? Yes, Shai, Tu B'Av. What happens on Tu B'Av, Shai?
Holiday of love, and you get to go run in the fields.
Yes, the love holiday. How grateful we are to the people who structure our calendar to know that right after the saddest day of the year comes a day of love, and that we're held in that. Then we go into Elul, which is our time to kind of turn towards ourselves. It's one of the New Year's, and it's the beginning of our high holiday season. We get into Tishrei. Here's another fun fact for 101 Hebrew calendar. How many days? There's 29 days in Tishrei. How many of them are holidays? $16. Keep going, Alina. 4. Keep going, Kenya. Way more than 4. Between Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchat Torah, it's 21 days. 21 out of 29 days are holy days. So if you're looking to pick a month of the year to get really close to the divine and open yourself up, Tishrei is it. You just have to wake up one day and then you're probably on a holiday. This is our pilgrimage month. And a long, long time ago, people would walk all the way to Jerusalem to give an offering. And then we have Cheshvan, which is the only month in the entire calendar that has no holiday. It's kind of a sad month because every other month has a holiday, has a marking that we are elevating. And Cheshvan is really the month where we're just kind of left with whatever happened in Tishrei. It's like the after party. It's like the slow down, the cool down. You know, you come back from a gathering with people that you love and you have that little bit of like twing in your heart of like, oh, I'm a little bit sad. And with Tishrei, it's also like I've just committed to being the best version of myself. I've done all the forgiveness I possibly can, and here I am. This is my year. This is the year where I'm going to be this fullest version of myself. And Cheshvan comes and it's like smacks you in the face. It's like, all right, show me your work. Here we are. You just committed to doing this. So that's Cheshvan. Oops. And then we get into the winter months and we start having Kislev, and Kislev, we start Hanukkah. Hanukkah goes right into Tevet. And then we come into Shvat, where we start seeing the sap on the trees changing. And it's about to be Tu B'Shvat. And then Adar. And what happens in Adar? Purim. The most chaotic, the most flip it on your head kind of holiday. And so it's so interesting to me. We start Nisan with so much order and structure. And then we build all the way to our highest version of ourselves. And then we burn it all down. And then we ask for forgiveness. And then we open ourselves completely to the divine. Then we have to get really in the work of Cheshvan with no distractions whatsoever. Then in the darkest months of the year, we feel the light, unlike the lightest times of the year where we feel darkness. And then with Kislev, we start thinking about miracles and light. We go into Shvat, we start planting new seeds, we start seeing the change in the seasons, we start feeling hope again. And then in Adar, we have like insane parties, and everything that we think is true, we flip it on its head, and we dress up and we reveal our truest selves. And then we come back to amazing order and structure and the Haggadah. Do this while you're reclining to the left, looking in this direction, drinking this glass of wine. And so the calendar is a cycle, and it takes us through this emotional ride. You all see that? Cool. Oop. So we experience a rhythm within the day, within the week, within the month, within the year. And we can see the Hebrew calendar goes through these seasons, and each season has a spiritual journey for us. Every month begins on the first day of the new moon. This means Rosh Chodesh. This is the first commandment. So like we said, we before we started with Nisan, but here we are, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev. Then we go into Tevet. We talked about this time of year, really about moving from light and hope into replanting, into joy, and flip it on its head. Then we come into our freedom season in spring to summer. And it makes sense, because raise your hand if you saw some amazing flowers these past couple of months. In Washington, D.C., everything bloomed like crazy. It was like sad, sad, sad. Shvat came and I was like, oh my gosh, how could it possibly be Shvat? There's no way that anything's actually moving. And then as soon as the spring came, as soon as Nisan came, things started blooming and opening up. And I noticed a change in myself, where I started feeling like I could really move towards a more free and open version of myself. And here we are in Sivan. Now we're here in summer, and who knows what this summer will bring us. Last summer in the United States, it brought us a lot of energy. Certainly what's going on east of us right now is bringing us a lot to think about. And by the time that we get to Elul, right when it's starting to be fall, the time when the leaves start changing, the time that naturally people start doing new things with the new year and start turning in towards themselves, we have Elul. And then we come into Tishrei. Any questions about, no, now I'm seeing there's some questions in the chat, but I just want to pause and see if there's any questions right now on any of that Hebrew calendar month stuff we just did. No questions? If you could boil Judaism down to one word, it would be why. So I want to pause and have everyone think of a question, and maybe we'll get some brave souls to ask something. Is there a holiday in Tevet? Yes, Hanukkah. Actually, Hanukkah is the only holiday that spans 2 months. It starts in Kislev, and the 6th or 7th night, I can't remember, of Hanukkah is Rosh Chodesh Tevet, and and so that it ends in the month of Tevet. And the Rosh Chodesh Tevet is a really interesting holiday in North Africa, especially in Tunisia. There's a special night on that Rosh Chodesh called Chag HaBanot, and it's a holiday of the daughters. Fun fact on Hanukkah, we don't just read the story of the Maccabees. Does anybody else know the story of the biblical babe that we also read, the woman that we read on Hanukkah, which is traditionally read on Rosh Chodesh. Judith. Anybody know a Judith? My great aunt was named Judith. She was named for one of the most badass, I think I can say that, biblical characters ever. Has anybody read the story of Judith? Eva, can you unmute yourself and tell us for a second about Judith?
Oh my gosh, she's one of my heroines.
Give us like the elevator pitch of Judith.
Okay, so she was the daughter of a wealthy merchant, and her tribe was under attack by the Greeks, I believe it was, and they were about to lose. And she was like, wait, don't concede defeat. I got this. And she sweet talked her way into the enemy camp with a basket that was filled with really, really heady wine and super salty cheese. And she sweet talked her way into the general's tent, and she got him to eat the cheese and to wash it down with the wine. And then she and her lady in waiting, her serving woman, they cut his head off with his own sword, left the tent, and were like, don't bother him, he's really tired. And they left, and the next day the enemies woke up with his head on a spike outside their walls.
Vibes to Eva for giving us.
She's amazing.
Judith, yeah, there's actually a lot of really interesting art. You can see Judith.
Yeah, I live in Detroit. We have one of the paintings by Artemisa Gentileschi at the Detroit Museum.
Totally.
I love it. It's one of my favorite paintings ever.
This is like one of those other examples beyond just the book of Genesis, where I feel like we do not need Game of Thrones. We just need to read Torah. It's really wild. It's all there. And this is a story where Judith saves the Jewish people by chopping Holofernes' head off. And there's some really interesting things that happen in the story around gender as well, in terms of the way that she was received back by the Jewish people after being out all night. So lots to discuss as always with Torah. I'm sure it brings up things. Any other questions? Because look what happened when that question was asked. Alina asked a good question. Mine would be the how to mark time. Eva? You're muted, Eva. Are you talking to us? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
How come if we're celebrating the new year or the new beginnings now, we also celebrate them at Rosh Hashanah? Or am I completely missing something?
We talked a little bit earlier about how there's 4 New Years in the Hebrew calendar.
I must have missed that part.
It's all good. We're 4 New Years in the Hebrew calendar. And Rosh Hashanah is the birthday of the world, and Nisan is the first month of the Hebrew calendar. It's the birthday of the Jewish people. And it's kind of similar, like the 15th of April is tax day in the United States, and everyone knows that. And so that's kind of a new year. And then we have the calendar where the school starts. And I grew up in a household that knew when opening day baseball was also. And that was kind of a new year also. So you can think about that in spiritual time. There's 4 different ways for us to connect with something new. Yeah, Nicole.
So mine is more of how do you mark that time, right? So I think about, you've talked a little bit about Rosh Chodesh celebrations, but what are the things that you do to kind of mark the passage of the time beyond just knowing that that's what these are?
Yeah, I mean, I think the awareness of knowing is really powerful because there's a lot to learn about each month. Each month has a corresponding 4 Torah portions that have always happened. Like every person that has ever paid attention to the greatest book club of all time, aka Torah, reads the same Torah portions each month. And each month has a holiday to it and has a corresponding spiritual guidance to it. And that's some of the major work that I do with At the Well. If you're interested in learning more about each month, you can go to our website at thewellproject.com, which we'll share at the end. And we have resources that are called moon manuals that was a passion project of mine I started working on 6 years ago and has turned into a whole organization to help folks bring more Rosh Chodesh practices into their life. And so there's that. And the way that I mark time is that every month when I see the new sliver of the moon, I think to myself, and I do it in groups of people because that's my practice, is to come together on Rosh Chodesh with other people who commit to being in my Rosh Chodesh group. We call them well circles and At the Well. And we look at the themes of the Hebrew calendar month and we plan about what it is that we're going to be doing this month. Like, how am I going to be in relationship with the spiritual themes of that month? And you could ask yourself some questions, you can do some journaling, you can do some prayers, and it's a nice thing to root into. For those people who love like personal growth and are always thinking about how to like advance into their soul, when it's open like this, I just don't know, am I supposed to be working on, on my relationship to grief? Am I supposed to be working on my relationship to my siblings? Like, I don't know. It just is hard to know how to grow. And the comfort of the Hebrew calendar is that it is there for you and it's aligned with nature. And so that's my practice. And I did not invent that. This calendar was actually invented in the 6th century BCE. So it's really, really old. And paying attention to spiritual time is for me very nourishing because it teaches me how to focus on what I'm supposed to be using my soul energy for each month. In the summer, I know now to approach the summer with a little more tenderness than I thought. It's not all, pool parties and barbecues. There's also a lot going on in our society that I need to be aware of in order to make sure that I don't overheat myself and perhaps burn something that's not supposed to be burning. And in the wintertime, when it's dark and cold outside, because I use this Hebrew calendar as something to root into, I know that I can be looking for hope and miracles and light. And that's reflected in a lot of other cultures also, to say that in this dark time, we're really bringing the light. David, you typed in yard sites, and do you have a question around that, or do you have a comment in terms of Jewish time that you want to share with us? Because that's a really important thing. And I know it was resonating with Deborah as well.
Yeah, I typed that in mainly as a marking of time. At least for me, I think of the time that's passed since people that have been important in my life have passed and died. And it kind of makes me aware of time, more sensitive to time, my own time, my limited time. And so that's why I put that in there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to not have an immediate family member in my life yet that I need to be celebrating the yard site. I know my grandparents because I'm aware of my own parents' relationship to it. And I think there's a lot of beauty in yard sites as well, and also just memory of things. It allows us to have that container that we talked about for that 25 hours of honoring someone's life. That's the time to be feeling into it. It's not every day. Otherwise, it's hard to focus on life. If I'm every day focusing on the sadness or the memory of that person, that's not there. The yard site allows that container to be there so we can be expansive in that container of the day that we mark that person's life. And like I said, I'm fortunate enough yet to not have to go through all the steps of Shiva. And I know that some people on this call have, and so I'd be curious to hear from those folks about what it was like to mark time in that process. Anybody have an experience with Shiva that they would like to share? I know it's very personal, so please only do it if you feel comfortable. Okay, well, I want to say, like I said, I don't want to say from my personal experience because I haven't had it and I watched it and I know about it and I learn about it because it helps us honor the feeling of someone passing in their life. And it takes us through that step-by-step process to help us integrate back into society. And we're not doing it alone. In Judaism, we do hardly anything alone. And that way, that marking of time, when you tell people that you're in Shoshim or you're in these things, people know how to respond to you. They know how to show up for you. They know what you're going through. And then there's a closing of it. And then there's a re-emerging back in society. And that container can be really helpful. Julie's letting me know that we are time for last questions. So for those folks who are interested in learning more about how to bring a Rosh Chodesh practice into your life, specifically people identify as being a woman or non-binary folks, At the Well is here for you. I'm here for you. A network of women's circles or non-binary circles are here for you. You can find out more information here. Here's my email, sarah@thewellproject.com. You can go to our website here. And you can also go to Julie from the JCC Manhattan, who creates opportunities for people to come together on Rosh Chodesh, to think about the spiritual teachings of that month, to connect in authentic conversation with each other, and honor the Jewish calendar as something to root into for your wellness, for your nourishment of your life. For those people who are interested in getting your text messages or getting emails around Jewish time, please reach out to the organization and we're here to help you. And with that, I just want to say Shechianu to everyone as the first class tonight of Shavuot 5781. One of the most powerful things about Shavuot for me is that on this night, we're all at Sinai together. Not just us who are living lateral to each other, we're all alive on earth, but everybody who's ever come before us. Think back, this calendar system was made in 6 BCE, or the 6th century BCE. That's a lot of time with a lot of people who on every day of every year have come together, who've learned together, who've tapped into it, and their souls are with us. And all the people that will come from us are also here on this night together to celebrate and to be in community and conversation and spiritual alignment with each other. So thank you very much for having me, for everyone's presence, and stay in touch if there's anything I can do to support you all. Thank you, Julie, and thank you to JCC for having me. This is really special.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed that session. Sarah, if you just want to drop your email maybe into the chat.
For sure.
That way it'll stay there. So you all can stay in touch with Sarah if you have any questions about At the Well or anything else that you've learned during the session. We will take a 5-minute, we'll take a 3-4 minute break. And then we'll be back with Sex and Torah with Rabbi Jen Queen.